about 9 months. You know, so as I was thinking about what was I going to talk about with the geology program here, one of the first things I did is I came up to viewpoints like this and I started watching people just like you. And there was this reaction that took place when people came up here and saw this for the first time. Maybe you experienced this. Right. We call it the Bryce moment. Where you are just overwhelmed by the beauty. And it is an extraordinarily beautiful landscape. And what I was going to look at is there's some really ordinary geologic processes that have created this landscape of extraordinary beauty. Things I'm going to be talking about, things that happen all over the world, but we just happen to have the perfect mix of ingredients here to create this beautiful landscape. And perhaps the most important ingredient is all ties back into one of the most basic geologic processes. Have you ever heard of plate tectonics? The inside of Earth has got a molten mantle. Okay, and on the surface there's these ocean plates and there's these continental plates, and they just kind of float and drift around on that. And sometimes they slide by each other, sometimes they spread out from each other, sometimes they collide. And that's what happened right here. They collided, but when they hit, the ocean plate called the Farallon plate ran into North America, and it hit and it slid under at a really, really shallow angle. This would be almost like you sliding your hand underneath a rug. That's how what of a shallow angle it was, and the result was it slowly uplifted or pushed the ground up into the air. And it pushed a really large area upwards. Maybe you've heard of the Colorado Plateau. This area right here. It's an area about the size of the state of Arizona. And this area was thrust straight up into the air, 1.6 kilometers or a mile upward, over about a 10 million year time frame. And it wasn't just pushed up, it was also tilted. And we're going to see that uplifting and tilting are responsible for creating this incredible erosion that created the Bryce Amphitheater. And we can see that the Colorado Plateau, it looks like it's one plateau, but it turns out it's actually 11 separate plateaus. And I'd like you to look over here and notice that the top of the amphitheater is white, bottom is pink. Okay, so we are on one of the 11 plateaus. It's called the Ponce Plateau. And if you look right across the valley over here, you'll see another plateau. And can you note the top layer is what color? Right over here? It's white. Below it is pink. So that tells us that this plateau over there and the plateau we're on right now, these two plateaus were once connected together. But when the ground was lifted up in the air, a crack formed, and the edges of the plateaus started to erode, and slowly but surely they separated from each other. So this is called Bryce Canyon National Park, but it's really the worst named park in the entire National Park Service system, because if you go to Grand Canyon National Park, what is on the bottom of the Grand Canyon? A river. Have you been to Zion National Park? What is on the bottom of Zion Canyon? Where's the river, right?
Nowhere.
There's nowhere. So that's why we are really the eroded edge of a plateau national park, but that doesn't sound very sexy, so we had to go with Bryce Canyon instead. So you can see this really created some pretty extraordinary erosion right here, just to give you a sense of how much earth was removed from where we are to that plateau over there, the Table Cliffs Plateau. That's 14 miles or 22 kilometers, and you go down almost 2,000 feet, so about 650 meters down, and all of that was eroded just over the last 15 million years. It's a lot of rock. So, ordinary process, pretty extraordinary result, but at Bryce Canyon, it wasn't just the uplifting. This plateau is also tilted on an angle, so the low end of the park is down on the other side of this little mesa see right here. That's called Fairyland, is on the amphitheater, is in the backside of that. And at the very end of the park is Rainbow Point. So pretty tremendous differences. Right here, we're at 8,000 feet above sea level. So it's about 2,380 meters above sea level, roughly. And so right here, when you look at all these rock fins and hoodoos out here, these are what I would call middle-aged hoodoos. They are in their prime time of life. They are never going to look better than they do right this very moment. But if you go to the very end of the park, you're up at 9,100 meters above sea level, so you're up about almost 2,800 meters above sea level, and the result is that area has been exposed to the forces of erosion for a much, much longer period of time. And the result, the hoodoos are old and worn out, just like me. They're kind of worn down over time, so you don't see very many of them up there. But before you leave Bryce Canyon, make sure to go to the Fairyland Amphitheater. That's the lowest elevation point in the park, and guess what? That's where the teenage hoodoos are located, and they are young and awkward. They're just kind of forming in life. So it's this kind of uplifting and tilting of the plateau. That's what's really responsible for the really spectacular erosion. Again, ordinary geologic process, really extraordinary results here at Bryce Canyon. The one other thing that I think is really interesting about this uplifting that occurred here is it really affected the way Bryce Canyon erodes. So I'm going to think back to that last question I asked you about the bottom of Grand Canyon, right? There's the Colorado River. The bottom of Zion Canyon, there's the Virgin River. And did those rivers, were they moving in a straight line? No. Water does whatever it wants to do, right? It's going to kind of go wherever it wants to go. So usually with the river erosion, the erosion is kind of willy-nilly. It happens wherever the water wants to go. But not at Bryce Canyon. Because when this plateau was raised up into the air, the rock was under a lot of stress, and the rock cracked. And there's a series of crack patterns in this amphitheater on Bryce Canyon here. Some of the cracks go to the northwest, some of the cracks go to the northeast, and some of the cracks go straight up and down. So water in Bryce Canyon National Park, it follows cracks and fractures. And the result is, look out here. Stand up for a minute, come over to the side so you can see this, because it's a great example. Now we have right below us, we have a mineral wall. There's a big space in between them. And that space in between each fin or wall here is where there's a crack or a fracture in the ground. So when it rained earlier, where did the water flow? Not down where this wall is, right? It's going to fall in between. And that's, over time, rock is eroded out, and that's how these things form. And remember I said these cracks, they kind of crisscross in here. So just look at the amphitheater wall as we come around, and you can see that there's a series of ridges and rills, ridges and rills, ridges and rills, ridges and rills. So it's these kind of fractures and crack lines. That's what created these beautiful shapes and patterns here in the amphitheater, because water always follows the cracks. Great example.